Hi, and welcome to Uncork, PA. I'm your host, Missy Wilson, a second generation winery owner at Sutter Ridge Vineyards in Kutztown, and I've loved being part of the Pennsylvania wine industry for almost 20 years now. Throughout these podcasts, we're chatting about the wines, the wineries, the vineyards, and notable figures that make up the Pennsylvania wine industry. Today, we're talking with Dan Brown of Deerfoot Vineyards and Winery located in Berks County. And his vines that he grows are included in the Lehigh Valley AVA. In addition, Thanksgiving's actually right around the corner. So at the end of the podcast, I'll give you some tips for picking a great wine, whether it's for appetizers, main course, or dessert. If you haven't thought about wine yet, don't forget it makes a great hostess gift as well. So you can visit the Pennsylvania Wineries Association's website at pennsylvaniawine.com to go find a winery close to you. So, if you're located near Berks County in the southeast region of Pennsylvania, a great option for your Thanksgiving wines is Deerfoot Vineyards and Winery located in Shoemakersville. And I'm happy to have with us on the program today Dan Brown, owner and winemaker.
Hi there.
Hey, Dan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, first of all, if many people, I'm sure, are not quite as familiar with Shoemakersville as people who live in the area are. So, can you give us a little bit of an idea of where your winery and your vineyard are located?
Yeah, sure. I like to tell people we're north of Reading and south of Cabela's because most people know Cabela's in Hamburg, kind of off of Route 78 there. So we're kind of between the two. Reading's the closest large town to us.
Perfect. So, I love a great background story when it comes to wineries and how they got started and people how they got started in the industry because really it can inspire anybody at any age to find their way into the wine industry as long as they have a little bit of passion for it. So, when did winemaking start for you?
So we have to go pretty far back. I actually, so I'm a third generation farmer. I grew up here. We had dairy cows when I was a kid, and in my high school days, we were growing produce at the time. So sweet corn, cantaloupes, that sort of thing. And I had talked to my dad about growing grapes and we saw a lot of wineries were popping up and thought, hey, maybe this is a viable thing for the farm, right? To keep the family farm going. But we realized once we started investigating it, that it wasn't right. The time wasn't right. There was specialized equipment involved and there's a lot about growing grapes and being in the wine industry that we weren't really ready for. So kind of put those plans on the shelf for a while. And then a couple years later, I met my wife and Jamie introduced me to wine in a completely different way because we were planning a date night and she decided to say, well, what kind of wine should I bring for dinner? I'm like, well, I don't really like wine. And her response was like, what do you mean you don't like wine? There's so many different kinds of wine out there. And what I had known was the things that my parents were drinking, which was like the Concord and the Niagara and the Steuben. And she introduced me to this Australian Shiraz. And I was like, what is this? This is not like anything I've ever had before. And it got me interested in wine, in the culture of wine. And I started homebrewing. So this was probably about 2007, 2008. I joined the American Wine Society. I started homebrewing in the basement. And I really started seriously considering like, hey, this may be, those plans may actually work. Let's talk about that with my dad. And at the time, there was a winemaking program that was starting up in Harrisburg at Harrisburg Community College. So I went back to school. I thought if this was something we really wanted to do for the farm, for the family, I want to do it right. And I want to learn everything about it. I loved chemistry. I do I work in the tech industry and I always love sciences. So I really enjoyed the chemistry. I have a passion for that. I really enjoyed like getting into the science of winemaking. And we decided, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to plant grapes. We started planting grapes in 2010. And a couple years later, I was making wine off of my own grapes as opposed to juice or kits or anything like that. So it's sort of homebrew kind of gone out of hand, but also, with a purpose, with something that we can do as a family business.
Wonderful. So you had mentioned we had talked earlier, and you had mentioned to me that you actually had this all planned out as a 10-year plan. And you were going to start gradually and kind of work your way into it, with the 10-year plan being, I guess, winery around 2020 or so, which in some ways probably good that it didn't happen then because of COVID.
Right.
But your 10-year plan really got shortened when it came to starting a
Yes.
commercial winery. So, you actually started producing wine before you even had a tasting room for people to come into to taste the wines. So, what did you do in order to get your product out to the consumers?
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, we started with this idea that we were going to sell grapes to other wineries and other people in the industry, and realized pretty quickly that that wasn't really going to work, right? So I took the 10-year plan that we're going to grow grapes. It takes a couple years to get grapes. We're going to build the tasting room. We're going to get ready for all that, and I ended up stuck with a bunch of grapes on my hands. I was like, well, I'm just going to do it myself. So I started making wine, and I started realizing, well, I got to find a place to sell it. And at the time, it was a fairly new thing to get a farmer's market permit. So they changed some of the rules around late 2000s, 2005 and beyond. So I got a permit so that I could set up on the sidewalk on the street and sell wine at farmers market. So I started doing West Reading. That was my first market on Sundays. And then I expanded from there. So I was doing Downingtown and Malvern, and I started doing markets as far away as Philadelphia. And that's how I got my start. Before we ever even had a tasting room, we were doing markets for almost 2 years before I had any place for people to come visit me, which was always kind of a weird conversation. It's like, well, where can we go to get this wine? I'm like, well, see me next Sunday. That was my answer for a while.
So that's actually a huge commitment, due to the fact that you did and you start currently still do have a full-time job that you're doing at the moment while kind of running a winery too and making wine.
Yeah, it's not quite, my primary job yet. It's growing every year. And actually that's one of the things that has been amazing to me is especially with COVID, as you mentioned, the support for local, the people who are interested. I saw it at the markets. I see it at the tasting room. People are really excited about getting their things locally, and we've been growing, and it's been a fun journey so far.
So while you were selling those wines at the farmers market, you were working on your tasting room at the farm. When did you finally open your tasting room that people could come and visit you instead of you going out to the people?
Yeah, we had a little bit of a preview for the neighbors, but then we opened about a month later in just the beginning of 2018. We got the tasting room open, and we are here at the farm. We have our location that's open just Saturdays and Sundays, because, as you said, I do work during the week. I'm here. So it was nice for curbside when we were doing that for COVID, but tasting room is mostly weekend business.
And you've even expanded ever since then. So you've started in the farmers markets, you opened your tasting room, and then you've actually expanded to a new location as well, correct?
Yeah, we opened a tasting room in Lancaster in 2021. I lived in Lancaster for about 15 years as I was homebrewing and sort of getting into this. I moved back here to the farm when I had my son. It was a better environment, better place to raise him. But I had this connection and I had this love for Lancaster City, especially. So when we were talking about, well, where should we have a satellite location? Where should we consider our expansion? It was kind of a natural fit. It's a great sort of urban vibe down there. And I realized, especially doing markets, different places around the state drink differently. So I sell a little bit more sweet wines here at the farm. I sell more dry wines the closer to any city, Lancaster especially. And it helps me balance out, that way I can make a more rounded menu. I can have a bunch of different things that appeal to a lot more people. And I don't have a couple wines that are sort of paying the bills for everything else.
So let's go backwards a little bit. We talked about you ramping up that 10-year plan because you planted vines and you had grapes in the growing and you didn't really have a place for them. So let's talk about the grapes in your vineyard a little bit. What kind of grapes did you end up planting?
Sure. So I started off with Riesling and a grape called Petit Verdot in 2020. I was, yeah, sorry, 2010. Uh, and those varieties I picked specifically because they were versatile and I thought that they were marketable. So Riesling, you can make into a dry wine, you can make into a sweet wine. Petit Verdot is great for blending. It has awesome color. It has really good tannins. So those were the two varieties I started with. As I grew, as I expanded, I added things like Cayuga and Chamberson. Both of those are flexible as well, but kind of more geared towards the local market. If I'm going to be making my own product and selling it to people, I added Cabernet Franc as well, and I also have a blueberry patch, so I make some fruit wine off of the blueberries that we grow here on the farm.
Wonderful. So, when people come out to visit your tasting room in Shoemakersville or your location in Lancaster, what types of wines can they expect to see on your tasting list?
I tend, since I like dry wines, I tend to have a good selection of dry, but it is mixed in with some sweeter ones because I recognize that's what a lot of people like. And I've learned to appreciate them over the years, especially since my dad's one of my primary taste testers. So I have a good sort of balance. I have about 15 wines, between 10 and 15 at any point of the year. Usually about five to six dry and then 5 to 6 sweet. I do also make a few fruit wines. So there's the blueberry that I mentioned. I also make a sour cherry wine, which is very popular. And I do some fun ones around the holidays, like I have a cranberry Riesling right now.
Oh, so I was going to ask. So, since Thanksgiving is actually on the horizon, we've made it through Halloween, and now the next. I think some people are trying to skip to Christmas. I'm not ready for that yet. Thanksgiving, one of my favorite holidays of the year because it's really about family and friendship and food and wine, of course. What types of wines that you have on your tasting list would you recommend to people to bring to their Thanksgiving dinner?
I have two sort of go-tos for Thanksgiving. One is if it's going to be a crowd and you're going to be bringing a lot of family in. I have a rosé, which I always recommend as a crowd pleaser because it's sort of in the middle. It's not too dry, it's not too sweet. It's not a red, it's not a white. So it kind of appeals to everybody. Everybody can kind of come together around the family dinner table and sort of appreciate it. Also goes very good with turkey. If you're more of I tend to also have like a more traditional suggestion, at least traditional in my family, which is I have a wine called Country Red, which is a Concord base with a little Riesling blended in. It kind of fits in my family traditions for Thanksgiving in Concord, and having that little sweet tart wine that goes with everything. It's kind of a replacement for like the cranberry sauce. So I always feel like that's my comfort, my go-to around the holidays.
So, you had mentioned before that your tasting room at the farm is open on weekends because you have a full-time job during the week. When people come out to visit you at the winery, what can they expect when they're going to do a tasting?
So we have $5 for tastings right now. It has changed over the years, but generally you get to try anything on the menu. We don't really do food. We don't really do flights. We did food during COVID because we had to, but I'm really focused on finding the right wine for the people that come in the door. And everybody's palate is different. Everybody's tastes are different. I love making sure that people go away happy with their experience. So for the tasting, you get to try anything you'd like. If we have the sparkling open, you get to try that too. And the idea is I want to find that right bottle for the person that comes in. Here at the farm, it's very low key. We don't have music. We don't have big events. I don't have a very big facility. Maybe someday I will, but right now it's really focused on that personal connection, and sort of guiding somebody to the right wine. We have picnic tables that we set out on nice weather. You can come see the horses across the street. It is a working farm. We are still farming, which is kind of unique. So you get some tractor noise at times. You get some animals and some wildlife floating around, but it's a very kind of relaxed vibe here at the farm.
So, in addition to the beautiful rural setting that you have, so perfect for people who kind of just want that nice getaway if you're in more of a suburban or urban setting, you have some really interesting labels on your wines as well.
Yeah, so the Lancaster connection is also part of that. My wife is an art teacher, and we've been involved in sort of the art scene. We have in our downtown shop, we have sort of a gallery wall, and I've always wanted to bring in local artists to be part of what we do and to be part of our label. So we have six local artists who have helped us design all of our labels. And part of that is, I've gotten some grief over the years about it because it's not a consistent brand. Every wine kind of has its own personality. But I kind of look at it like the homebrew, not the homebrew, the microbreweries and sort of the craft beer scene. They get to have so much fun with their labels, and I want to do the same. So every wine sort of has its own story. And I have all of the artists featured on our website, so you can learn more about them. Most of them are teachers or former teachers who haven't had a chance to really show their work. So this is a way for them to express their creativity. The winemaking is part of how I express mine, and it's just a really nice fit to sort of bring that personal connection to what we're doing.
So, if people are interested in learning a little bit more about Deerfoot, what's the best website to send them to for some additional information?
Um, Probably the best to learn about us as a family is deerfootfarm.com. If you go to the main site, it'll kind of lead you towards the blueberry patch or the farm or the winery. If you want to go straight to the winery part, it's wine.deerfootfarm.com. And that'll take you right to our homepage where you can learn about specifically the wine.
Perfect. So Pennsylvania is also home to 10 wine trails throughout the state. And if you're interested in finding one that's close to you, all you have to do is head to PennsylvaniaWine.com, click on wine trails at the top of the page, and you'll get to see the location of each of the wine trails. So Deerfoot Winery is actually part of the Berks County Wine Trail. So can you tell us a little bit about the wineries that encompass the Berks County Wine Trail?
Yeah, so we have 11 wineries that are local to us that are part of the trail. The Berks Wine Trail has to be within a couple miles of the Berks County border. So all the wineries are sort of centrally located to the county. And it's great. It's a great group to be a part of because most of us are small businesses, right? We're all sort of in this because we have the family drive and the family connection. Everybody who is in the wine trail actually has a really close hand in making the wine, which is fun for me because like I said, that's how I get my creativity out. Everybody's wine has their own personalities, and it's such a small business feel and small business community that I'm excited to be part of the group. I'm inspired by the other winemakers. The owner is the winemaker for most of them, and you don't have that sort of like corporate big winery feel to it. And that's something that I spend a lot of my day job dealing with the large companies and the sort of the corporate environment. So it's nice to be part of a business group like this and with passionate winemakers and really get that personal connection.
So, for a lot of wine trails, you can create your own itinerary, visit the wineries throughout the year. But most wine trails also have self guided events throughout the course of the year. So, what kind of events does the Berks County Wine Trail host?
Sure. Yeah, we have 4 to 5 events throughout the year. The big ones, we have two ticketed events. One is wine and cheese in the fall. We just got finished with that here in October. That usually coincides with Pennsylvania Wine Month. And then we have wine and chocolate around Valentine's Day. So that's another ticketed event. And when you get a ticket, you get to go to each of the wineries and you get the featured pairing. So you get the chocolate, you get the wine, you get that whole experience. We also do some free events throughout the year. Usually more leaning towards like the winter months. So we have our winter warmer, which is in January, and it's just a great excuse for people to come out, get some hot food paired with their wine, and it's completely free. So you can go out and you can visit as many wineries as you can fit in a weekend, and it's a fun experience.
So, these are actually really great times to go out and try wines that you might not tend to pick when you go wine tasting. And pairings are also a great way to see how well the wines actually work with food. So, after Thanksgiving, we have December and we're starting to move into those winter months. The Berks County Wine Trail actually has a really fun new event that is happening in December, which is
We're doing cookie pairings, so holiday cookie pairings. A lot of people have the family tradition where they're making cookies around Christmas time. So we're gonna incorporate that in and try to do some wine tastings that pair with the cookies.
Which is super fun because it kind of shows you that number one, wine is fun and it's supposed to meant to be enjoyable. But also, a lot of times people think of wine and savory food, except for like chocolate. They always put wine and chocolate together, but wine pretty much goes with everything. So you really get that chance to enjoy Christmas cookies, and you definitely during the Christmas season you need some wine to get through the season with all the stressfulness going on. So with December right around the corner, where can people get some additional information about the Christmas cookie pairings on the trail, or even if they're looking into January to look for something fun to do after the holidays?
Yeah, so the Wine Trail website is berkscountywinetrail.com. It has links to all of the member wineries on it. It also has links to the events, both future events coming up and past events that has the dates. We do have our 2024 dates set, and they should. I think they're on the website. So that's available for anyone who wants to kind of check out the wine trail. We do some advertising as well throughout the year for some of these events, but the best place to go is right to the Wine Trail website.
Perfect. Well, Dan, thank you so much for all the information, both on Deerfoot Winery and the Berks County Wine Trail. And you guys want to make sure you go out and visit the websites at deerfootfarms.com and berkscountywinetrail.com to get any additional information you're looking for. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Mhm. So many people are often concerned about picking that wine for a special event, such as Thanksgiving. So I want to give you a couple tips just to make this a little bit less stressful for you. First of all, wine is supposed to be something that you enjoy, not stress over. You don't need to run hours out of your way to find that perfect bottle. You can find a great bottle at the state store or a local winery nearby. The key is also to drink what you like. So don't bring out a bottle of Chardonnay and expect to enjoy it with a meal if you don't like Chardonnay. Just because an expert says that it's the perfect wine doesn't mean that it's the perfect wine for you. If you like sweeter wines, just make sure you have a bottle of sweet Riesling, Sparkling Niagara, or Concord on the table. If you love crisp acidic wines, don't grab that bottle of Gewürztraminer. Go for Pinot Gris or Riesling. But if you're open minded with your taste buds, here's a couple great options to try for your Thanksgiving dinner. The classic choice for many is Pinot Noir. It's a lighter body, fruit forward red wine. It has a lot less tannins than many of your heavier reds. And not only does it pair well with your turkey, but it's also perfect for your side dishes, from like sweet potatoes to your stuffing to your squash. Just because the weather is getting a little bit cooler doesn't mean you need to give up those rosés. Like Dan had mentioned, that's the one he pulls out. It's enjoyed as a still or sparkling, and that really light fruitiness of the wine pairs perfect with any appetizers you have, and especially cheese courses. If you're looking for something a little bit unique to show something fun for your friends and families, try a Gruner Veltliner. This white grape that originates in Austria rather, has become really popular throughout the state, winning awards and really gaining popularity. Really refreshing and crisp. If you want just one bottle of wine that'll pair well from the start of your meal all the way through dessert, your go-to is a Riesling. And the great part about Riesling is you can find it from sweet to dry. I kind of call this my vanilla of wine. It's just something that goes well with everything. So when you choose your Riesling, make sure you ask that employee whether it's at the state store or whether it's at the winery itself about the sweetness of the wine, because Riesling can really go from a very bone dry to very, very sweet. And then that way you're not disappointed one way or the other. If you would like some other great tips on Thanksgiving wines, just head on over to the Pennsylvania Winery Association's website at pennsylvaniawine.com. Type Thanksgiving into the search bar, and you'll find some really great information. So it was great to hear from Dan from Deerfoot Winery and the Berks County Wine Trail about his start in the business and some great wines to try. And there's some really great options for you when it comes to pairing your Thanksgiving dinner. Pennsylvania has a great selection of wines to choose from, so include a bottle or two when it comes to your dinner. In addition to checking out the wineries in your area, it's great that the Pennsylvania state stores now have that section made in PA where you can find some really great local wines that are work well for you as well. We're starting wind down for the season on Uncork PA. We'll have one more new podcast for 2023. So don't forget to subscribe to this station so you get a notice when the new episode is released. You can enjoy the videos on Facebook or YouTube, or if you want to listen, you can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite place to stream your podcasts. We want to thank the Pennsylvania Wine and Rate Association for supporting this program with grant money from the PLCB, and we look forward to sharing more hidden gems of the Pennsylvania wine world with you next time.